Okay, we're going to look at Wordsworth's a section from Wordsworth's epic autobiographical poem, The Prelude. And in this portion of the poem, the speaker, who is Wordsworth, it's an autobiographical poem, reveals a moment where he, as a young person, did something perhaps he shouldn't have done on an impulse. He stole a boat to go for a small trip on his own. And during that trip, he had an experience that shocked him and changed him to the core and frightened him. And this experience stayed with him. The thing that you might notice when reading the Prelude, especially after reading Blake, is how much of a story this is, how little we see rhyme or stanzas, or the things that we're used to sometimes seeing in what we come to expect as poetry. But Wordsworth is using free verse, and he's speaking in a natural way. And what the poetry here is of the event itself, and the language as it's elevated, and some of the words that he uses in particular to convey what's happened. So I just want to take you to a few parts of the poem that I think are worth looking at. The first thing, the poem is, there are three movements of the poem, and in the first movement, the speaker reveals that he has that he was taken away by some force, and this force he calls her, and he found a little boat, and what he did was he unloosed her chain. Now the thing we have right away is, who is this her? The boat itself is feminized, but so there's the suggestion that the boat itself was taking him to this place, but it's unclear what force is taking him in. But he unloosed her chain. This boat itself is a woman, and this act was an act of stealth and troubled pleasure, and this is worth thinking. Stealth is secretive, hidden, and we get that tension. Pleasure, which is a good thing, but troubled pleasure suggests that there's already, he knew he was doing something wrong. And he slowly moves out with the boat. And here we see the beautiful poetry of Wordsworth come through, small circles glittering idly in the moon. He's able to paint the picture of where he is in the nighttime with the moonlight and the glittering, the shining, the almost diamond-like movement of the light in the water. And he's really creating this beautiful, exciting, naughty mood here. And this is furthered, all this trail as a pack of sparkling light. So all the language here is really elevated and worth looking at. And on this trip, as he's going, he starts looking off in the distance, and he fixes his view on the summit of a craggy ridge. Craggy, I think, jagged, but the word for me suggests something frightening, ominous, scary, and this. It's as if he's going somewhere he shouldn't, because he's seeing the boundary, the outside part of where he should be. And the suggestion here is he might be going somewhere beyond, somewhere he shouldn't be going. So he's continuing, and he notices nothing but the stars and the gray sky. She was an elfin pinnace. Elfin is small. Pinnace is boat. So it's like a small boat. Maybe the boat itself is what's leading her on. But he emphasizes the smallness of the boat in relationship to everything around him. Now the word lustily here means heartily, strongly. And he says, lustily I dip my oars into the silent lake. So he's pulling really strongly. But that word lustily also suggests something sexual. Again, it alludes to the energy, the forbidden nature of what he's doing. He starts really rowing, and he's pushing himself through the water, heaving through the water like a swan. So a simple simile there. When? Now here comes the second movement of the poem. When something changes. So here we get part 2 of this poem. The first part, he steals the boat, but then all of a sudden something happens. From behind that craggy steep, till then the horizon's bound, a huge peak, black and huge. That repetition shows, remember, he's in this elfin pinnace, and now this enormous, huge, he repeats twice, appears to him, as if with voluntary power instinct, upreared its head. Here becomes in nature a force watching and emerging. And you can already sense that it's going to be frightening. There's something scary and tense about what he's describing here. I struck and struck again, and growing still in stature, the grim shape towered up between me and the stars, and still, for so it seemed, with purpose of its own and measured motion like a living thing, strode after me. This monstrous presence seems to be chasing him. All of a sudden, we really get the atmosphere of this horror movie. That he runs off into nature. He thinks he's doing something really cool. He's just stealing this boat. There's some suggestion that he's getting a sexual thrill. He's doing something forbidden, and all of a sudden, this force emerges. And he says, with trembling oars, he's starting to be frightened. Trembling is shaking. He's frightened now. And he doesn't need to say, I am frightened. That's the thing with Wordsworth. I mean, again, we're still in poetry, even though it may feel like just a story, or the emphasis is on the narrative here. The speaker doesn't just need to tell you things, he's showing you. So with trembling oars turned, and through the silent water, stole my way back to the covert of the willow tree. So he's covert, hidden. He's hiding again. And he abandons the bark. Okay? He comes back and he gets rid of the bark. So because he was frightened of this thing, he's left it. And there you think it should end. It was just an experience, it's fine. But actually in the last movement of the poem, we see really the lasting effect of this event. So through the meadows, he went home in grave and serious mood. But after I'd seen that spectacle, for many days my brain worked with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being. O'er my thoughts there hung a darkness, call it solitude or blank desertion. So because of what's happened above, there's the suggestion in his mind of something dark, unknown in the world. There are these other ways of being alive. And he says maybe it's solitude, like a loneliness. But then he says blank desertion. Maybe everything escaped from my mind. Maybe everything left me. No familiar shapes remained. No pleasant images of trees, of sea or sky. No colors of green fields. but huge and mighty forms that do not live like living men move slowly through the mind by day and were a trouble to my dreams. So nature stops being trees and let's say sunshine or joy. Nature starts to be something that involves awesome, as in large, awesome, large, frightening, brutal, mighty, strong, much bigger than him, and not like men, but something else, almost like a monstrous. Do not live like living men. Are they ghosts? Are they some sort of other presence? And these things move slowly through the mind by day and were trouble to my dreams. He's starting to have nightmares of what he sensed out in nature. So for Wordsworth, who's a number of his poems suggest a communing with nature or a love of nature, in this poem we see that having stolen a boat in the first part, he starts to feel a frightening presence, perhaps it's guilt, something in nature though, sees him, emerges, and finally it can't leave him. He's changed completely, he's changed utterly, and this experience leaves him frightened, ashamed, and haunted in his day and his night.